Malik had always been proud of his uniform. He was a Navy SEAL who had served his country for many years with honor and skill. After months of missions overseas, he finally came home to visit his mother, in a quiet town in Georgia. He wanted peace, a few days of rest, and time to walk through the same streets he once played on as a boy. Malik was calm by nature, respectful, and always followed the law. The morning was bright, the sun was high, and the air smelled of rain from the night before. Malik wore a gray jacket and jeans as he walked down Main Street. He stopped by a small grocery store to buy milk and bread for his mother. The shopkeeper, Mr. Allen, smiled when he saw him. "Malik, you're back," Mr. Allen said cheerfully. "Your mother told me you were on leave." "Good to see you, son." Malik smiled back. "Good to see you too, sir. It's good to be home." He paid for the groceries, placed them in a paper bag, and started walking back toward his mother's small house at the end of the block. His mind was full of quiet thoughts about home-cooked meals and family laughter. But peace never lasts long in some towns. A police car rolled slowly behind him. The sound of the tires was low but steady. Malik turned slightly, seeing the white car with the blue stripe and a single officer inside. The man behind the wheel was Officer Reynolds, a local cop known for his strictness. Malik had seen him years ago when he was just a teenager. Reynolds was a man who liked control and attention. Reynolds stopped the car beside Malik and rolled down the window. "Hey, you there," he said sharply. "Where are you going with that bag?" Malik turned politely, his voice calm. "I'm going home, sir. I just bought groceries for my mother." Reynolds stared at him for a moment. "Let me see your ID." Malik hesitated for a second, confused. "Is something wrong, officer?" Reynolds stepped out of the car. His boots hit the pavement and he walked closer. "Just show me your ID," he repeated. "We had reports of suspicious people in this area." Malik slowly reached for his wallet. "No problem, sir. I'm just visiting. My name is Malik. I live 2 streets away." He handed his ID card carefully. Reynolds glanced at it, then at Malik's face. He looked again at the bag. "What's inside?" "Groceries, sir. You can check if you want." Reynolds opened the bag and saw bread and milk. He frowned, still acting suspicious. "You think you can walk around here like you own the place?" "We keep things clean here. I don't want trouble." Malik's calm voice stayed steady. "I understand, sir. I don't want trouble either." A few people nearby stopped to watch. The air grew tense. Malik noticed how Reynolds' hand rested on his holster, even though there was no reason for it. Malik raised his hand slightly, showing he posed no threat. "Officer, please, I'm not here to cause any issue." Reynolds' tone grew louder. "Don't tell me what to do. You think wearing nice clothes means you can do whatever you want?" Malik could feel the heat in the air and the eyes of the people around. He had faced dangerous missions overseas but never imagined this kind of danger at home. He kept his voice low. "Sir, I respect the law. I serve the country. I'm a Navy SEAL." Reynolds paused, unsure whether to believe him. "You a SEAL?" That's what everyone says when they get caught doing something wrong. Before Malik could respond, Reynolds shouted, "Hands up!" Malik froze, shocked by the sudden aggression. The people nearby gasped. He raised his hands higher. "Officer, please, I'm cooperating." Reynolds pulled out his gun, his finger shaking slightly. His face showed anger and pride. Malik stood still, every muscle tense. He had trained for war, but his training had also taught him control. He knew sudden movements could make things worse. "Sir," Malik said slowly, "I'm not armed. I'm just a citizen going home." But Reynolds didn't listen. His pride had already taken control. He fired once. The sound echoed across the street. The bag of groceries fell to the ground, milk spilling across the sidewalk. Malik fell back, pain burning through his shoulder. People screamed. A woman shouted for help. Someone called for an ambulance. Reynolds looked shocked for a moment, as if realizing what he had done, but he quickly grabbed his radio. "Officer needs backup," he said, pretending to be in danger. Malik lay on the ground, holding his shoulder. His vision blurred, but his mind stayed sharp. He knew how to survive. He had survived worse. He forced himself to roll to the side, taking cover behind a nearby bench. His breathing was heavy, but he controlled it, focusing like he was on a battlefield. 2 young men ran to help him, but Reynolds shouted, "Stay back." The young men stopped, afraid. Malik looked at them and nodded slightly, telling them silently to stay away. Minutes felt like hours. The sirens in the distance grew louder. Malik knew he could not let himself be taken away by corrupt officers who might twist the story. He pressed his hand against his wound, stopping the bleeding as best as he could. His mind ran through options, thinking like a soldier. When the backup cars arrived, Malik crawled behind the alley near the store. He used a piece of his jacket to cover the wound tighter. Then he took out his small phone, one that only his SEAL teammates knew about. His fingers moved fast. He sent a single coded message. At that same moment, in a Navy base 200 miles away, a small alert flashed on a secure screen. It was a signal only SEAL Team 6 would recognize. It was Malik's distress code, one he was trained to send only in life-threatening situations. Back in the town, Reynolds stood near his car, pretending to direct the arriving officers. He told them Malik had attacked him. Some believed him, some didn't. People whispered among themselves, confused and scared. In the alley, Malik's strength began to fade, but he refused to give up. He whispered to himself, "Hold on, help will come." He knew his team would not ignore that signal. They never left anyone behind. As the sun began to set, the quiet town that had once felt peaceful now stood divided and tense. But Malik was not alone anymore. His brothers in arms had received the message. They were already on their way, and when SEAL Team 6 moved, they moved fast. The next 30 minutes would change everything. The pain in Malik's shoulder was sharp, but his mind stayed focused. Years of training had taught him how to survive in impossible situations. He moved slowly through the narrow alley, keeping his back close to the wall. His breath came heavy, but he refused to stop. He had to get away before the police surrounded the area completely. Behind him, he could hear the sound of cars and voices. The officers were spreading out, searching every corner. Malik looked at the wall ahead of him. There was a low fence behind the grocery store, leading to the neighborhood behind Main Street. He pushed himself toward it one step at a time, leaving a faint trail of blood on the ground. When he reached the fence, he gritted his teeth and climbed over it. His injured shoulder burned with pain, but he made it across. He landed in a backyard full of tall grass. A dog barked once from a distance, but Malik moved quickly and stayed low. He crossed the yard and entered another alley that led toward the old rail station. The town was small, and Malik knew it well. He remembered every shortcut from his childhood days. He passed behind a laundry shop, then behind a row of small houses. Every move was quiet, every step careful. His military instincts guided him. After 10 minutes, he found an abandoned shed near the edge of town. The wooden walls were cracked and the roof leaked, but it was enough to hide for a short time. Malik pushed the door open and stepped inside. He sat on the dusty floor, breathing heavily. He tore off a piece of his shirt and tied it tightly around his shoulder to stop the bleeding. Then he took out his small phone again. He checked the screen. The message he had sent earlier showed a green mark. That meant his team had received it. He whispered, "They know." Inside a secure command room hundreds of miles away, SEAL Team 6 was already moving. Their commander, Davis, saw the message on the screen. It was short, but he understood everything. The code Malik used was only sent when one of their own was in danger inside the country. Davis turned to his team. "Malik is in trouble. Local law enforcement shot him. We have 30 minutes to reach him before they move him or make it worse." Without wasting a second, the team began to prepare. Helicopters were fueled, coordinates were set, and communication lines were opened. These men were the best of the best. They worked in silence, but with perfect coordination. Malik was not just a teammate. He was a brother. Back in the shed, Malik took a deep breath and closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered the faces of his team, their voices, their loyalty. That memory gave him strength. He could not rest for long, though. He knew the police would search the whole town soon. Outside, he heard footsteps. A flashlight beam moved across the grass. Malik's heart beat faster. 2 officers were nearby, checking each yard. He waited silently, pressing himself against the wooden wall. The light passed close to the door but didn't stop. The officers spoke for a moment and walked away toward the next street. Malik waited a full minute before moving again. He opened the back window of the shed and slipped out. He moved toward the old railway track that led to the forest outside town. It was getting darker, and that helped him. He followed the track until he reached a small bridge. Under the bridge there was a stream. Malik knelt beside it and cleaned his wound with the cool water. The sting made him wince, but he needed to keep it clean to avoid infection. He tore another piece of his shirt and wrapped it again. Then he looked at the sky. The sun was gone, and the first stars began to appear. He whispered softly, "Hurry up, brothers." In the distance, the sound of helicopters began to rise. It was faint but clear enough for him to recognize. He smiled faintly. Help was coming. At the same time, in the police station, Officer Reynolds was standing in front of his superior, Chief Miller. The chief looked angry and worried. "You said he attacked you," the chief said, "but witnesses say he didn't. They say he was unarmed." Reynolds tried to defend himself. "He looked dangerous." "I thought he had a weapon," the chief frowned. "And now he's missing. Do you realize how bad this looks? You shot a man who served this country. If the media gets this story, we're finished." Reynolds looked down. "We'll find him before anyone else does." "Find him alive," the chief warned. "If he dies, this whole town will pay the price." Reynolds left the office, his face hard with anger and fear. He didn't want to lose his job or his reputation. He gathered a few loyal officers and ordered them to search the forest area. Malik, unaware of the conversation, kept moving through the trees. The forest was quiet except for the sound of insects and the wind. He walked carefully, leaving almost no tracks. His training helped him move silently even while injured. After another 15 minutes, he saw the open field ahead. He stopped and looked up. In the distance, he could see the faint light of a helicopter approaching low across the sky. It had no visible markings, but Malik recognized the pattern of its movement. It was his team. He took out a small signal light from his pocket and flashed it twice. The helicopter responded with one short flash from above. Malik smiled weakly. His message had been received. The helicopter hovered over the field for a few seconds, then a rope ladder dropped down. Two figures descended swiftly, both wearing dark uniforms and night vision gear. Malik could hear their voices calling his name quietly. "Malik, it's us," one of them said. "We've got you." Malik moved out of the shadows. He was pale, tired, and hurt, but his eyes were steady. The two SEALs reached him and helped him stand. One checked his wound while the other secured the area. "We need to move now," the first SEAL said. "Police units are closing in." They lifted Malik gently and guided him toward the ladder. He climbed slowly with their help until he reached the helicopter. Inside, two more teammates waited with medical gear. They started cleaning and bandaging his wound properly. The helicopter lifted off and turned west, flying low over the trees. From below, the police cars reached the field just in time to see the dark shape disappear into the night sky. Reynolds shouted in frustration, his voice lost in the sound of the engines. Inside the helicopter, Malik opened his eyes and looked at his commander. Davis nodded at him. "You did good, soldier. You're safe now." Malik's voice was weak but steady. "They'll try to cover it up." Davis looked out the window at the small town fading behind them. "Then we'll make sure the truth comes out. No one harms one of ours and walks away from it." Malik rested his head back and closed his eyes. The sound of the helicopter blades was steady, almost like a heartbeat. He knew his brothers had come for him, just as he had trusted they would. Far below, the lights of the town flickered in the distance. The night was calm again, but the truth of what had happened was not going to stay hidden for long. SEAL Team 6 had arrived, and their mission was far from over. The next part of the story was about justice. The helicopter moved fast across the dark sky, leaving the small town far behind. Inside, the soft red light glowed over the faces of the SEAL team. Malik sat near the back, his shoulder bandaged tightly. He was tired but awake. His eyes stayed focused on the floor as the pain throbbed under the cloth, but his mind stayed sharp. Commander Davis sat beside him. He had been Malik's commander for years, and he trusted him like a brother. He looked at Malik and said in a calm tone, "You're lucky to be alive." "That was close," Malik nodded slowly. "If I didn't move fast, it would have been worse." He didn't even ask questions. He just acted. Davis clenched his jaw. "We'll handle it. What matters now is that you're safe. The rest we'll take care of the right way." The helicopter's pilot turned his head slightly and spoke through the headset. "Commander, we're 15 minutes from the base. Do you want to call headquarters?" Davis replied, "Yes, patch me through to Admiral Brooks." The pilot made the call. A few seconds later, a clear voice came through the speakers. "Commander Davis, report. Admiral, we've extracted Malik. He's injured but stable. Local police are involved in the incident. We need immediate permission to investigate and secure all data from the town systems before it's destroyed." The Admiral's voice was firm. "Understood. I'll authorize a temporary special operations order. You'll have 48 hours to gather information, but keep it clean. No conflict with local law enforcement unless necessary. Yes, sir, Davis replied. The call ended and Davis turned to his team. You heard the man? We move fast. They'll try to hide the truth, but we're not letting that happen. Malik looked out the window at the passing clouds. There were people watching. Some filmed the scene. If we can find them, we can prove what really happened. Davis nodded. We'll track them down. First, you rest. You need your strength. The helicopter landed at a hidden military base in the nearby forest. The air was cool and the sound of rotors faded as the engine slowed. Several medics ran to meet them. They helped Malik off the helicopter and took him inside the medical tent. The team followed close behind. Inside, the doctor examined Malik's wound carefully. The bullet passed through your shoulder. You're lucky. No bones broken. You'll recover, but you need to stay still for at least a day. Malik smiled faintly. 1 day is all I can give you, Doc. The doctor shook his head but smiled back. You soldiers never rest. Davis walked outside and gathered the rest of the team in the command tent. The table in the center showed a digital map of the small town. He pointed to the main streets, the police station, and the surrounding area. Here's what we know, Davis said. Reynolds fired the shot. The chief tried to control the story, but the townspeople saw what happened. We'll collect every recording, every witness, and we'll make sure the truth gets to the right people. One of the younger SEALs, named Rob, leaned forward. Sir, should we go in quiet or official? Quiet, Davis said. We don't want to scare the civilians. We go in as investigators under special order. Malik's name will stay out of the report for now. We'll protect him and the mission, Rob nodded. Understood, sir. The next morning, before the sun rose, Davis led a small group back toward the town in a black van. They wore civilian clothes but carried identification that allowed them to operate under federal command. Malik stayed behind at the base, his shoulder bandaged, resting but ready to guide them by radio. He sat beside a small communication console, listening to the team's voices through the headset. Team Alpha moving in, said Davis's voice. We're near Main Street. Locals are already talking. Malik replied. Check the grocery store first. The owner saw everything. His name is Mr. Allen. He'll help you. Copy that, Davis said. In town, Mr. Allen was sweeping his shop when Davis and Rob entered. The old man looked up with cautious eyes. Davis showed his ID quietly. Sir, we're here about what happened yesterday. We just want the truth. Mr. Allen nodded slowly. I saw the whole thing. That officer didn't ask anything. Malik was polite. He didn't fight or argue. The shot came without reason, Rob asked. Did anyone record it? Mr. Allen pointed to the corner of the street. A lady across the road was filming with her phone. Her name's Mrs. Turner. She lives in the blue house at the end of the lane. Davis thanked him and left. They moved quickly to the address. Mrs. Turner answered the door, looking nervous. When Davis explained who they were, she hesitated, then nodded. I saw everything. I didn't post it because I was afraid, but I still have the video. She handed them her phone. Davis watched the footage carefully. It showed everything clearly. Malik's calm voice, Reynolds shouting, and the moment the gun fired. The truth was right there. This is enough, Davis said. We'll keep a copy. He gave Mrs. Turner a card. If anyone asks, tell them federal investigators already spoke to you. You're under protection now. They left and continued collecting statements from other witnesses. Everywhere they went, people spoke the same story. Malik had done nothing wrong. The officer had acted out of pride and anger. By noon, Davis had all the data he needed. He called Malik through the radio. We've got the video, the witnesses, everything. Once we secure the files, we'll report to command. Malik's voice came through, steady and clear. Good work, but be careful. Reynolds will know you're there soon. Davis replied. We're ready for him. At that moment, inside the police station, Reynolds was pacing in his office. He had already heard that strangers were asking questions around town. His hands trembled slightly as he called one of his friends on the phone. They're digging into it. They've got witnesses, his friend replied nervously. Maybe you should just tell the truth. It'll come out anyway. Reynolds slammed his fist on the desk. Not while I'm still wearing this badge. He grabbed his coat and walked out, his mind full of panic. He planned to get rid of the dash cam footage from his car before the investigators could reach it. But he was too late. When he entered the garage, 2 men were already standing there waiting. Davis and Rob turned around slowly. Davis spoke in a calm, firm voice. "We already have the footage, Officer Reynolds. And the witnesses. It's over." Reynolds froze. "You have no authority here." Davis stepped forward. "We do now. This is a federal investigation. You shot an unarmed man. You lied on your report. You tried to destroy evidence. That's not just wrong. That's a crime." Reynolds looked around, realizing he was cornered. He lowered his head slowly. The anger that had once driven him now turned into fear. Davis spoke again. "You could have admitted the truth. Now you'll face justice the right way." Outside, more federal vehicles arrived. Officers stepped out with papers and cameras. The townspeople began to gather, whispering as they watched. Malik listened from the base. When Davis told him the news, he closed his eyes and let out a long breath of relief. "Thank you, Commander. You did what I couldn't." Davis replied, "You earned it, Malik. You stood strong when it mattered." By evening, the story had reached the higher offices in the capital. The military report was clear and supported by evidence. The truth was safe. Malik's name was cleared completely, and his actions were respected by everyone who heard the story. As the day ended, Malik walked out of the medical tent and looked at the sunset. The orange sky reminded him of peace, the kind he had been seeking when everything began. Davis walked up beside him and stood quietly for a moment. "Justice takes time," Davis said, "but it always finds its way." Malik nodded. "I just want people to know what really happened. Not for revenge, but for truth." Davis placed a hand on his shoulder gently. "They will. Because of you." The two men stood in silence, watching the sky fade from gold to blue. In that quiet moment, Malik knew that his brothers had once again proven what loyalty meant. SEAL Team 6 never left one of their own behind. The mission was not just about rescue. It was about honor, truth, and unity. And their next step was to make sure justice was complete. The next morning was quiet at the military base. The early sunlight fell across the trees and a soft wind moved through the camp. Malik sat outside the medical tent, his arm in a sling, watching the sky slowly brighten. He still felt weak, but his spirit was strong again. His brothers had not only saved him, but had also brought the truth to light. Yet something inside him said that the story was not over. Commander Davis walked toward him with a file in hand. His face was serious and his steps were steady. Malik looked up. "What's next, Commander?" Davis handed him the file. "Reynolds has been taken in for questioning, but his lawyer is already trying to twist the story. He's saying it was self-defense. The chief is confused and local officers are divided. Some want to protect him. Others are ready to speak the truth. It could turn into a mess if we're not careful." Malik opened the file and saw pictures from the scene. The grocery store, the witnesses, the video stills. He took a slow breath. "So it's not finished yet?" "No," Davis said. "But it will be. The federal hearing starts tonight. They'll hold it at the regional courthouse and we'll be there. You'll tell them what really happened. We'll make sure they hear your voice." Malik nodded. "I'll be ready." Later that day, Malik stood before a mirror wearing a clean uniform. The medals on his chest reflected light as he adjusted his collar. He looked calm but determined. Davis and the rest of SEAL Team 6 stood behind him. They were not there as soldiers, but as brothers ready to support one of their own. The drive to the courthouse was silent. The team sat together in a black van, each man alert. Outside, the town looked normal again, but the people on the streets whispered when they saw the military convoy pass. Everyone knew why they were there. At the courthouse, a crowd had already gathered. Reporters stood near the steps, their cameras ready. People wanted to see what would happen. Some held signs calling for justice. Others waited quietly, unsure what to believe. Inside the large hall, Malik sat near the front. Across the room, Reynolds sat beside his lawyer. His face was pale, his eyes tired. He looked smaller than before, like a man who finally understood the weight of his actions. The judge entered and the room fell silent. The sound of papers and footsteps echoed. The judge spoke clearly. "We are here to discuss the case of Officer Reynolds and the incident involving Navy SEAL Malik Johnson. Both sides will present their statements and the evidence will be reviewed." Reynolds' lawyer spoke first. He tried to paint the picture of confusion, claiming that Reynolds had feared for his safety. He spoke of mistakes and quick decisions, trying to make it sound like an accident. When it was time for Malik to speak, he stood up slowly. His shoulder still hurt, but his voice was firm. "Your Honor," he said, "I was not a threat. I was not armed. I was just going home to my mother." I served this country for years, fighting in dangerous places so others could live in peace. I never thought I would face danger from someone who was supposed to protect me. The judge listened carefully. The room stayed silent. Malik continued. I raised my hands. I followed every command. I spoke with respect. I did everything right, yet I was still shot. That is not fear. That is judgment without reason. He stopped for a moment and looked toward the people sitting behind him. There were witnesses. There was video. The truth is clear. I am not here for revenge. I am here for accountability. No one should fear the ones who are meant to protect them. When he finished, even some of the officers sitting in the back nodded quietly. The prosecutor then showed the video Mrs. Turner had recorded. The screen displayed the clear image of what had happened that day. The crowd watched as Reynolds shouted, then fired. Gasps filled the room. The truth was now undeniable. Reynolds lowered his head, unable to look. His lawyer whispered something to him, but he stayed silent. After the evidence was shown, the judge called for a short break. Malik stepped outside the courthouse to get fresh air. Davis joined him. You did well, Davis said softly. You spoke with honor. Malik looked at the horizon. I didn't do it for myself. I did it for every person who ever felt powerless. Just then, one of the team members, Rob, came running out with a phone. Commander, you need to hear this, he said. Davis took the phone and listened. His face turned serious. What? When? He ended the call and turned to Malik. A group of Reynolds' friends from the station are planning to move him before the verdict. They think they can sneak him out and make him disappear before the decision is read. We can't let that happen. Malik's eyes narrowed. So it's not over after all. Davis looked at Rob. Get the rest of the team ready. We'll secure the courthouse perimeter. We'll make sure he stays right where justice needs him to be. Within minutes, SEAL Team 6 moved quietly into position. 2 stayed near the back exit, 2 near the parking area, and 1 near the side door. Their movements were professional, quick, and silent. They had done operations all over the world, but this one was close to home. Inside the courthouse, the hearing resumed. The judge prepared to deliver the verdict. Reynolds sat nervously, his hands shaking slightly. Malik sat straight, eyes fixed ahead. Suddenly, a noise came from the back door. 2 men in plain clothes tried to open it. They carried fake IDs and whispered to each other. Before they could move further, Rob stepped forward and blocked their path. You're not going anywhere, he said calmly. The men froze. One of them reached for his phone, but before he could do anything, another SEAL appeared behind him and took it away. The situation ended in seconds without any harm. The courthouse guards arrived and the 2 men were taken into custody. The judge looked confused for a moment, then continued. It seems we had an interruption, but order is restored. Now, as for the matter at hand, everyone waited. The air in the room was heavy with silence. The judge spoke firmly. Based on the evidence, the testimonies, and the clear video proof, this court finds Officer Reynolds guilty of misuse of authority, false reporting, and unlawful action. He is hereby dismissed from his position and will face sentencing under federal review. The sound of relief spread across the room. Some people clapped softly. Others wiped tears. Malik closed his eyes for a moment, letting the weight of the moment settle in his heart. Justice had finally spoken. Reynolds was led away quietly. He didn't look at Malik. His head stayed low, his steps slow. Outside, the sun was setting behind the courthouse, painting the sky in gold and red. The air felt lighter now. Reporters tried to ask Malik questions, but he only said one line. Truth always wins when you stand for it. He turned away and walked toward the van with his team. Davis walked beside him, proud but quiet. When they reached the base later that evening, the team gathered in the dining hall. The atmosphere was warm and full of respect. Rob raised a cup and said, "To Malik for standing strong." Malik smiled. To the team for never giving up. They all lifted their cups together. The sound of laughter filled the room. For a moment, they forgot about the pain and fear. All that remained was unity and peace. As night fell, Malik stepped outside and looked at the stars. The world felt calm again. He knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but he also knew that courage, truth, and brotherhood would always guide him. The battle for justice had been fought, but one thing still remained. The story had reached far beyond one small town. People across the country were now talking, asking questions, and seeking truth. Malik's experience had become more than a personal fight. It had become a message about what was right, and SEAL Team 6 stood ready for whatever came next. The morning sun rose over the quiet town, lighting the streets that had been filled with fear and confusion only hours ago. Malik sat in a small medical room inside the precinct, his arm wrapped in clean bandages. His body hurt, but his mind was calm for the first time in many days. Around him, members of SEAL Team 6 stood watch. Their uniforms were neat, their faces sharp and alert. They had finished what they came for. Justice had been served. Captain Lewis stood beside Malik, watching him carefully. "You did well," the captain said. His voice was low but filled with pride. "You stayed strong even when everything was against you." Malik smiled faintly. "Couldn't have done it without the team," he said. His voice was weak but steady. "You came fast. I didn't think I'd make it out." The captain shook his head. "We would never leave one of our own behind. You know that." Outside, the sound of police sirens faded as federal agents arrived to take control of the scene. Officer Reynolds and his small group of corrupt officers had been arrested. The truth about their actions was already spreading. The town that once ignored the voices of the weak was now seeing the cost of blind hatred and abuse of power. Malik looked through the window. The people outside were talking quietly. Some carried small flags, others held signs asking for peace. Many looked tired but hopeful. For the first time, Malik felt that maybe his pain would not be wasted. He had always believed in service and loyalty and fighting for what was right. Now he understood that the greatest battles were not always fought on foreign soil, but sometimes right at home. One of the team members, a tall man named Harris, entered the room carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Malik and the other to the captain. "Reporters are outside," Harris said. "They're asking questions about the team. They want to know if we're going to talk." The captain shook his head. "We don't talk, we act. Let the truth speak for itself." Malik nodded in agreement. The SEALs had always lived by their code. Silent professionals. They didn't fight for fame. They fought to protect. A few minutes later, an investigator from the federal office entered. He was an older man with gray hair and a calm face. "Mr. Malik," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Agent Moore. I'll be handling the case from here." Malik shook his hand. "Thank you," he said simply. Agent Moore opened a folder. "The evidence is clear. The body camera footage shows everything. The officer's actions were unlawful. There's no question about it. The department will be cleaned out and those responsible will face charges." The captain listened quietly, his arms crossed. "That's all we needed to hear," he said. After the agent left, the team gathered in the hallway. There was a silence between them, not of sadness but of understanding. Each of them knew what it meant to risk their lives for something bigger than themselves. Later that day, Malik was cleared to leave the precinct. As he stepped outside, the cool air brushed against his face. People nearby began to clap softly. Some smiled, others wiped away tears. Malik didn't want attention, but he felt grateful for the kindness. He raised his hand slightly in thanks. A small boy ran up to him holding a folded piece of paper. "My dad said you're a hero," the boy said shyly. Malik knelt down and smiled at him. "Heroes are the ones who stay kind, even when things are hard," he said. The boy grinned and ran back to his mother. The team walked Malik to a black SUV parked at the corner. The captain opened the door for him. "We're taking you back to base," he said. "You need rest. The medics there will take good care of you." Malik nodded. He looked back one last time at the small town. It was quiet again. The air felt lighter. For the first time in a long while, it felt like peace might return. As the vehicle drove away, Malik leaned his head against the window. He thought of all the missions he had been on. He had faced danger in deserts, jungles, and oceans, but nothing had felt as heavy as facing injustice in his own land. Yet even then, he hadn't been alone. His team had come for him, not out of duty, but out of brotherhood. At the base, the SEALs were welcomed with respect. The commander of the unit came forward to meet them. "You did what had to be done," he said. "The world will never know the full story, but your actions made a difference." Malik stood at attention, saluting his commander. "Permission to rest, sir," he said. The commander returned the salute with a small smile. "Granted," he said. Days passed. Malik spent time recovering in the medical wing. His body healed slowly, but his spirit grew stronger. Letters from civilians started arriving at the base, messages of thanks, respect, and support. Many wrote that Malik's courage reminded them that good people still stood against wrong. One evening, Malik sat outside the barracks watching the sunset. Harris joined him, sitting quietly beside him. "You know," Harris said after a moment, "the captain wants you to train the new recruits once you're better." Malik looked at him surprised. "Training?" Harris nodded. "Yeah. He says no one teaches calm under pressure like you do." Malik smiled. "Maybe it's time to pass it on," he said. "The next generation should know what it means to stay strong." The sky turned orange and gold. For a while they sat in silence, listening to the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore. Later that night, Malik wrote in his journal. He wrote about his team, the mission, and the lessons he had learned. He wrote about courage, fairness, and loyalty. He ended with a single line that reflected his heart. "Strength is not in fighting enemies, but in standing for what is right even when the world looks away." Months later, the case against the corrupt officers concluded. The court's decision was clear. The guilty were sentenced, and the department went through a complete change. The community began to rebuild trust. Malik's name was not mentioned publicly, but his actions had quietly inspired many. One morning, as Malik walked into the training ground, he saw a group of young soldiers waiting. They stood straight, eager and nervous. Malik looked at them and smiled. "All right," he said. "Let's begin. First rule of a SEAL, never lose control no matter what happens." The trainees listened closely. As he trained them, Malik saw in their faces the same fire he once had, the desire to protect, to serve, to do what was right. And in that moment, he knew his journey had not ended. It had only changed its path. Far away, the town that had once been divided was now united by a shared truth. The people remembered the man who stood strong in the face of injustice. And though Malik never asked for recognition, his story became a quiet legend, a story of courage, loyalty, and justice that would be told for years to come. The sun set once more, painting the world in warm light. Malik stood tall, proud of his team, his choices, and the peace he had helped restore. In his heart, he knew that honor and justice would always guide him no matter where life took him next.